What's bothering Rashi? That's a phrase uttered by Gedolei HaTorah for 920 years, since the death of Rav Shlomo Yitzchaki Zecher Tzaddik Livracha in the year 1105. There's also a 5-volume set of commentary named after that immortal phrase. Well, we all get to ask that question ourselves this week.
So, boys, stay tuned. There's a gewaldige podcast. Rabbi Steve Geller does a gewaldige Zach, and that'll be coming out this week. Torah Giants on Chumash. Shalom Uvrach, and welcome to the weekly piece on the Parsha from Torah Giants on Chumash, written by Rabbi Yitzchak Meir Goodman, the Rabbi Emeritus of Youngers Rockaway. Sit back and enjoy.
Welcome to Torah Giants on Chumash. I'm Steve Geller. These are always fun parshios with the excitement and miracles around the plagues and the way Hashem took the Jews out of Egypt and sustained us in the desert. And we're all very familiar with the 10 plagues from everything in the Torah, the commentators, and all the color we gain at our Pesach Seder. But as he so often does, Rabbi Goodman is going to point out a Rashi which will slam the brakes on a regular Torah of the Parsha, bringing up a glaring question that many people may not have asked. Let's take a quick abbreviated look at Rashi's comments on the 10 plagues. Blood. Hashem struck the Nile first because it was an Egyptian deity. Frogs. One giant frog came out of the Nile, then the Egyptians struck it, and it multiplied into swarms. Lice. The tiniest dust particles turned into lice. Wild beasts. It was a mix of dangerous animals, lions, tigers, snakes ravaging Egypt. Pestilence. It was a contagious disease exclusively affecting Egyptian livestock, sparing Israeli animals. Boils. Soot miraculously spread across Egypt, turning into boils afflicting the Egyptians. Hail. Rashi says that the hail had never been seen before in Egypt, marking this as an unprecedented event. Locusts. The locusts were especially severe as they destroyed the crops remaining after the hail. Darkness. Rashi asks, why did Hashem bring darkness? Why did Hashem bring darkness? Rashi didn't ask why any of the other plagues were brought. Why is Rashi questioning Hashem here? What's bothering Rashi? Well, suit up. This week in our Parsha, Moshe held out his arm towards the sky and a thick darkness descended upon all the land of Egypt for 3 days. Rashi goes on to tell us, which he gets from a midrash, that there were 2 sets of 3 days. In the second set, they could not even change positions from sitting to standing, among other things. And this is where Rashi asks, and why did he bring darkness upon them? Rashi goes on to explain that there were evil Jews who did not wish to leave Egypt, so they died in the second 3 blackest days, and were apparently buried very quickly so that the Egyptians wouldn't see. So this is a very important Rashi with 2 fascinating points. One, Rashi tells us that when the pasukim say there were 3 days of darkness, they were actually 2 sets of 3 days. One with a thick darkness, and the second 3 days where the darkness was thicker, so much that people were stuck in whatever position they were in when it started. Rav Alexander Shor, the Bechor Shor, wonders, why does Rashi ask this question? Why did Hashem bring the darkness? Only about the darkness. As we briefly saw, the first 8 plagues did not prompt this question. What was wrong with simply presuming it was just the 9th of the 10 plagues? His answer is why we showed up today. After the first plague, the pasuk says that 7 days passed. Rashi there informs us that each plague lasted 1 week, followed by a 3-week period which Moshe used to threaten the Egyptians with the next plague. However, in the case of darkness, the Torah says 3 days. And Rashi could only find that medrash that added 3 more days, but still short of a week. Since this one plague did not continue for the full week, Rashi surmises that it was not primarily meant as a plague, but must have had a special purpose. Therefore, he found and accepted the midrashic statement that its purpose was to dispose of evil Jews in a quiet way. In light of Rashi's medrash that there were actually 2 sets of 3 days of darkness, let's look real quick at our original pasuk and the next one. Moshe held out his arm towards the sky, and thick darkness descended upon all the land of Egypt for 3 days. But the next pasuk, people could not see one another, and for 3 days no one could move. But all the Israelites enjoyed light in their dwellings. The 2 pasukim both say there were 3 days of darkness. It's easy to understand this as simply more details about the 3 days of darkness that Hashem inflicted on Egypt. But in light of Rashi's medrash, we can now easily see the 2 sets of 3 days proposed. The first pasuk describes 3 days of thick darkness, and the second with a thicker darkness that prevented people from even moving. Another elaborate and very clever interpretation of this Rashi is found in the name of the Pnei Yehoshua. The idea that darkness lasted 6 days creates a logistical problem. We know that we celebrate Shabbos HaGadol, which in Egypt occurred on the 10th of Nisan, to recall the helplessness of the Egyptians, who saw their God held by the Jews in readiness for a great slaughter of the Karban Pesach. According to the Gemara in Brachos, Moshe warned Paro about the coming 10th plague of the firstborn 1 day prior to that plague. And this meeting took place on the 13th of Nisan, right at the conclusion of the plague of darkness. So counting back 6 days of darkness, we go from the 13th to the 8th of Nisan, passing through the 10th of Nisan. But according to this account, there was darkness on Shabbos HaGadol, in which case the Egyptians wouldn't have been able to see the abuse of their sheep-goat god. According to the Pnei Yehoshua, Rashi's comment that there was a second set of 3 days may have been meant to address this very dilemma. Why did he bring darkness? So that the wicked Jews would die secretly and be buried quickly, unnoticed by Egypt. But we don't bury the dead on Shabbos. So there was no purpose to have darkness on Shabbos HaGadol, the 10th. So now the 6 days of darkness must have come in 2 sets as follows. The 7th, 8th, and 9th of Nisan, with a break on the 10th of Nisan for the Jews to collect their sacrificial lambs in full view of the Egyptians. And the 11th, 12th, and 13th of Nisan was the thick darkness where the Egyptians couldn't move, allowing for the death and burial of the wicked Jews. Just spectacular color and light from Rabbi Goodman, as usual. But do you know what else would bother Rashi? That is, God forbid, if you didn't like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and most importantly, hit the share button to copy the link to this video, allowing you to simply paste that link into emails, Facebook, texts, WhatsApp groups, or your social media of choice. They'll all love it, and it will help realize the potential of Rabbi Goodman's life's work, Torah Giants on Chumash.
We go to yeshiva to learn, that's Torah. We seek closeness to Gedolim, that's Torah. We daven for inspiration and v'sein chalkeinu b'sorasecha, that's Torah. We come up with chidushim in our own learning, that's Torah. Maybe. Share your chidushim. Send your original Torah pieces to torahmaybe@gmail.com or email that address for more information. Also visit www.youtube.com/@torahmaybe.